But when he looked at Maya and Evan, the worry faded. For the first time in a long time, he didn't care what the world thought. Evan suddenly asked his mother, "Can we come here again someday?" Maya looked down. She knew the answer but didn't want to break his excitement. "Maybe," she said softly. "Someday." Adrian noticed the sadness behind that maybe. He wanted to say, "You can come anytime. I'll make sure of it." But he knew he couldn't speak like that. Not yet. Not without crossing boundaries she wasn't ready for. So instead, he said, "This place has good food. I come here often." Maya smiled politely. "It's nice. But a little expensive." Adrian appreciated her honesty. So few people said the truth to him anymore. Evan finished his meal and leaned toward Adrian with a big grin. "This is the best day ever," he said. The words hit Adrian's heart with unexpected force. The best day ever. For a child who had so little, this simple dinner meant everything. Adrian swallowed a sudden lump in his throat. Maya looked at her son, then at Adrian. "Thank you for not making us feel out of place," she said quietly. "You never were out of place," Adrian replied. And he meant it. Their worlds were different. Their struggles were different. Their dreams were different. But tonight, at this small restaurant table, they met in the middle, as people. Not a CEO. Not a single mom. Not a child searching for dessert. Just three souls sharing one unexpected evening. What none of them knew was this. A storm was already building outside this warm moment. The night inside the restaurant felt warm and gentle, but outside that warmth, trouble had already started forming. The man in the grey suit, who had seen Adrian with Maya and Evan, moved fast. He wasn't a bad person, but like many people, he loved a dramatic story more than a true one. And a CEO having dinner with a woman and child? That was a story people would talk about. Inside the restaurant, Adrian had no idea that whispers had already begun. He wiped his hands with a napkin and glanced at Maya, who was helping Evan get down from his chair. The little boy looked full and sleepy, the way children do when they've had a good meal. Maya smiled at her son. "Say thank you," she whispered. Evan turned to Adrian. "Thank you for the chair," he said sweetly. "And for being nice." Adrian smiled. "It was my pleasure." Maya watched him, noticing how his expression softened around children. She wondered what kind of loneliness lived behind that professional suit and calm face. But before she could say anything more, a group of three people walked past their table. One of them whispered loudly, "Isn't that the CEO?" Another replied, "Who's that woman? And the kid?" The third said with a laugh, "Maybe he found himself a new family." Their voices were not loud, but they were not soft either. Maya's face tightened with embarrassment. Adrian's jaw clenched. Evan didn't understand the comment, but he sensed the tension. He grabbed his mother's hand tightly. Adrian leaned forward slightly and said calmly, "Ignore them. They like talking." Maya nodded but looked down at the table. "I didn't want to create any trouble for you," she whispered. "You didn't," Adrian said firmly. "People talk even when you do nothing." But Maya knew how the world worked. People made fast stories and slow apologies. And when it came to powerful people like Adrian, even small rumors could grow into storms. Maya stood slowly. "I think we should leave. Evan is tired anyway." Adrian stood too. "Let me walk you out." She shook her head. "No, it's okay." He gently insisted, "Please. It's the least I can do." They walked outside together. The night air was cooler, the street lights soft against the sidewalk. Evan held his mother's hand while looking around curiously. Adrian walked beside them, feeling something strange inside, like he didn't want this moment to end. It was the first peaceful evening he'd had in months. When they reached the curb, Maya turned to him. "Thank you again. You were kind to us." Adrian shook his head lightly. "Kindness is not a gift. It's something everyone deserves." His words surprised her. She had met wealthy people before, but most treated kindness like a favor they could choose to give or withhold. Adrian, however, spoke with sincerity, simple, honest sincerity. Before she could respond, a car stopped beside them. A man stepped out. It was someone from Adrian's company, a higher manager who knew him personally. "Sir," the man said with a stiff smile, "I didn't expect to see you here. And with company." Adrian's expression tightened. "This is not company business." The man's eyes dropped to Evan, then to Maya. The judgment was clear, sharp, and immediate. Maya felt a sting in her chest. She pulled her son a little closer. The man nodded respectfully to Adrian but shot Maya a look that told her exactly what he thought. She wasn't right for this world. She didn't belong near it. Adrian noticed the look. His voice turned cold. "Do not look at her like that." The man blinked, shocked. I didn't mean." "You did," Adrian said. "And I won't tolerate it." Maya's breath caught. No one had defended her like that in years. The manager muttered an apology and hurried back into his car. A heavy silence followed. Maya looked at Adrian, unsure what to say. "You didn't have to defend me," she whispered. Adrian looked straight into her eyes. "Yes, I did." Evan yawned softly, unaware of the storm around him. Maya took a slow breath. "Adrian, I don't want to make your life messy." He shook his head. "My life was already messy. Tonight was the only part that wasn't." Her eyes softened. But deep inside, she knew something. This gentle connection they had was going to face many challenges. The street outside the restaurant was quiet. A gentle breeze moved through the night, brushing against Maya's hair and making Evan lean sleepily against her side. Adrian stood in front of them, unsure of what to say, unsure of what the moment meant, but certain that he didn't want it to end. Maya cleared her throat softly. "We should go. It's late, and Evan has school tomorrow." Adrian nodded. "I understand." But the way he said it sounded almost disappointed. Like a part of him wished the night would stretch a little longer. Maya sensed it too, and for the first time, she realized how lonely Adrian really was. Not the surface loneliness people pretend to have, but the deep, silent kind that lives behind strong faces and expensive suits. She smiled gently. "Thank you again, for treating us like ordinary people." "You aren't ordinary," he said quietly. "Not at all." She looked away, a small blush on her cheeks. Compliments were rare in her world. Adrian walked a few steps closer. "Can I call you? Maybe meet again." Maya froze. She liked him, she respected him, but her life was not simple. "Adrian, your world is different. People already looked at us strangely tonight." "I don't care what they think," Adrian replied. "But I care," she whispered. "I care about how Evan grows up. I can't allow people to make stories about me." Her words were honest. Heavy. True. Adrian swallowed the frustration in his chest. He wanted to pull her into his world, but he also understood why she was afraid. Maya wasn't thinking about romance or dreams. She was thinking like a mother, strong, careful, protective. Evan tugged her hand. "Mommy, I'm sleepy." Adrian looked at him with a softness he hadn't felt in years. "Can I at least walk you both to your bus stop?" Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Just to the corner." They walked together in silence. He recognized the CEO immediately. He was an employee from Adrian's own company. And he saw Adrian sitting with a woman and a kid. His eyes widened. He pulled out his phone. Adrian noticed him, and suddenly tension filled the air. Everything was about to become complicated. But neither Maya nor Evan had any idea that their simple, quiet dinner was about to enter a world they never expected. The man in the grey suit left the restaurant quietly, but the silent tension he created stayed behind like a shadow. Adrian tried to act normal, but his mind was alert. He knew exactly what that employee had seen, and what kind of rumors could spread from it. But Maya didn't notice any of this. She was too focused on Evan, who was happily eating bread with wide, excited eyes. To him, being here felt like a small adventure. And in a way, it was. Maya wiped Evan's mouth gently, smiling at him with motherly affection. That simple gesture, full of love and patience, caught Adrian's attention again. He found himself studying her quietly. Not in a romantic way, at least not yet, but in a curious and respectful way. Who was she? What kind of life had shaped her into someone so gentle, yet so strong? It was Maya who finally broke the silence. "I'm sorry if we disturbed your evening," she said softly. Adrian shook his head. "You didn't disturb me. I'm actually glad you sat here." She gave him a small smile. "Thank you. We didn't plan to come here today, but Evan wanted to celebrate something." "Celebrate?" Adrian repeated. He looked at the boy, who nodded proudly. "I got a gold star in school," Evan said loudly, raising his small hands. Adrian smiled, and even Maya laughed. The sound was soft and warm, like sunshine after a rainy day. That's something worth celebrating, Adrian said. Congratulations, Evan. The boy beamed. But behind that smile, Maya held a different story. She rarely had the time, or money, to celebrate anything. Tonight was special, but also difficult. She had worked extra hours all week just so she could bring Evan out. And even now, she was carefully counting every coin in her head. Adrian didn't know the details, but he sensed the weight behind her eyes. "Do you celebrate often?" he asked gently. Maya shook her head, hesitating. "Not really. Life doesn't always allow it." Her voice was calm, but there was something deep behind it. Something unspoken. Adrian didn't push her. He respected boundaries more than anything. But the way she said those words made him feel a sudden, unexpected ache in his chest. She continued, trying to sound cheerful, "But Evan works hard. And I want him to feel proud of his little wins." Adrian looked at the boy again, admiring how simple life was for children. A gold star was enough to make Evan's whole evening special. Adults needed so much more, and even then, they were never satisfied. The thought stung him. Maya's phone buzzed. She checked it quietly, a message from her second job reminding her about the next morning shift. She put the phone down and took a deep breath. Adrian noticed the exhaustion in her movement. "You work late?" he asked softly. "Work early," she said with a small smile. "And late too, sometimes." Her tone was light, but her eyes told the truth. She was tired, not from one day, but from many, many days of carrying life alone. "Where do you work?" Adrian asked. She hesitated, thinking he might judge her. "I do small jobs," she replied carefully. "Cleaning, delivery, cashier work. Whatever comes." There was no shame in her voice, only honesty. Adrian felt something shift inside him, a deep respect. He had met people with degrees, titles, fancy lives, yet none of them had the strength this woman carried quietly. Before he could speak again, Evan asked, "Mommy, can I have dessert?" Maya froze. Dessert was expensive. She looked at the menu, then at her wallet, then at her son's hopeful eyes. It was a small request, but not small for her. Adrian saw the hesitation. He gently said, "Evan can choose any dessert he likes." "It's on me." Maya looked up sharply. "No, please. You have already given us your seat. That is enough." Her voice was calm but firm. She wasn't just refusing money. She was protecting her pride, and her son's understanding of life. Adrian respected her even more. But Evan looked between the two adults, confused. "Mommy, why not?" he asked. Maya touched his cheek. "Because we should only take what we can pay for, sweetheart." The lesson was powerful. And Adrian felt it hit him deeper than she knew. At that moment, he realized something. This woman lived in a world where everything was earned, while he lived in a world where everything was given. Two completely different worlds, sitting at the same table. That Evan's dessert request hung in the air like a small test between two worlds. Maya kept her gentle but firm smile, trying to hide her inner worry. She didn't want her son to learn to depend on strangers. Adrian understood her silence. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable, so he simply nodded and respected her wish. Evan, being a child, forgot about dessert a moment later and went back to eating cheerfully. But Maya's eyes stayed thoughtful. She knew Adrian wasn't judging her. In fact, he looked like someone who hadn't judged anyone in a long time. And that made her curious too. People like him, rich, polished, confident, usually avoided people like her. They walked around her, above her, and rarely into her world. But Adrian wasn't doing that. He was sitting with her son, listening, noticing, respecting. It felt unusual. It felt unexpected. Sensing her thoughts, Adrian asked softly, "Do you always handle everything alone?" Maya nodded, though the answer was heavier than the gesture. "Yes. It's been just me and Evan for a long time." There was no bitterness. No anger. Only quiet truth. Adrian admired her strength. He thought about his own life, big office, big home, big responsibilities, but no one to share the silence with. No one waiting for him. No one who cared if he ate, rested, or fell asleep at his desk. Sometimes, success felt like a beautifully decorated loneliness. Maya looked at her son lovingly and said, "I just want him to grow up kind. And strong. I want him to know that life can be simple and still be beautiful." Adrian nodded, feeling the words more deeply than he expected. Then Evan looked up and asked Adrian innocently, "Do you have a son?" The question struck Adrian's heart like a soft arrow. "No," he said quietly. "I don't even have anyone to go home to." Maya's expression softened. She understood more than he said. Their food arrived, breaking the growing emotional weight. Evan dug in happily. Maya ate slowly, savoring the moment, because moments like this didn't happen often. Just then, wind blew through the window and scattered a few napkins off the table. Maya reached to catch one, but Adrian was faster. Their hands brushed for a fraction of a second, a tiny, accidental touch. Both froze for a moment. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't dramatic. It was just human. A reminder that they weren't as different as their lives suggested. Maya quickly pulled her hand back, embarrassed. "Sorry." "It's okay," Adrian said gently. Silence settled again, but it wasn't awkward anymore. It was warm, soft, and strangely peaceful. Across the room, a group of people whispered quietly. Adrian didn't look, but he felt it. Word traveled fast, especially when you were a CEO who lived under constant watch. He wondered if the man in the grey suit was already spreading stories. The restaurant was full that night. Warm lights, soft music, and the smell of fresh food filled the air. People were talking, laughing, enjoying their meals. But in the center of the room, on a small table near the window, sat a man who looked different from everyone else. He wore a sharp black suit, a silver watch, and an expression that tried to hide something. His name was Adrian, a young but successful CEO, known for his strict work life and quiet personality. But tonight, he wasn't here for work. He kept looking at his phone every few minutes. Then he checked the empty chair in front of him, as if someone important was supposed to sit there. A few guests noticed him and whispered to each other. Even the staff looked confused. It was rare to see such a powerful man sitting alone like this. The narrator's voice echoes in the mind of the audience. He had everything, except someone to share his life with. Adrian took a deep breath and checked his phone again. A message popped up at the top of the screen. The moment he saw it, his face changed. His heart dropped a little. "Sorry, I can't come tonight." His blind date had cancelled. Again. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying not to let his disappointment show. He didn't want people to see him like this, waiting for someone who didn't even care to show up. He tried to act normal. He picked up the menu, but his hands felt heavy. His mind wasn't on the food anymore. He wasn't just waiting for a date. He was waiting for connection, for someone real. Still, he sat there quietly, trying to pretend nothing had happened. But the empty seat in front of him told a different story. He looked around the room. Everyone seemed happy. Everyone had someone. Except him. For the first time in a long time, Adrian felt truly alone. And that feeling hit deeper than he expected. Suddenly, the restaurant door opened. Cold night air rushed inside. A woman walked in, holding the hand of a small boy. Her clothes were simple. She looked tired but carried a soft, calm strength. Her name was Maya, though Adrian didn't know that yet. She seemed nervous as she looked around. The place was crowded. Every table was full. Her son tugged at her hand and pointed at a dessert display. She smiled at him, but only for a second. She needed a seat first. She walked to one corner, then another, but everywhere was full. Some people ignored her. Some looked at her son and shook their heads. It was a busy night. No one had space. The little boy looked sad. Maya tried her best to hide her worry. Adrian watched this quietly. Something about her caught his attention. Maybe the tired eyes, maybe the small boy, or maybe the way she carried herself with gentle dignity despite her struggles. The boy suddenly whispered something to his mom. She followed his finger and saw Adrian's table. There was one empty seat. Maya hesitated. She didn't want to disturb anyone, especially someone who looked rich and busy. Adrian didn't look like the type of man who would enjoy sharing his table with a stranger, especially a single mom with a child. But she had no choice. She slowly walked toward him. Her steps were unsure, her heart beating fast. Adrian noticed them coming and looked up. Their eyes met for a brief second. She gave a small, polite smile. "Excuse me," she said softly. Is this seat free?" Adrian blinked, surprised. Nobody had spoken to him for the last 30 minutes. He looked at the empty chair, the same chair where his date was supposed to sit. For a moment, he didn't answer. Not because he was unwilling, but because he was shocked that someone actually needed that chair. The narrator's voice returns. He didn't know it yet, but this simple question was about to change everything. The scene freezes. Her question hangs in the air. The empty seat was no longer just a seat. It was the beginning of something unexpected. Adrian did not answer immediately. He just looked at the woman and her little boy, as if his mind was trying to understand the moment. A CEO, sitting alone after a cancelled blind date, and a single mother standing in front of him, asking for a spare seat. Life could be strange sometimes. Finally, he nodded slowly. Yes, it's free. Maya let out a quiet breath of relief. She thanked him softly and guided her son to sit. The child climbed into the chair happily, while Maya sat carefully, trying not to disturb the man who had allowed them to share the table. For a few seconds, silence stretched between them. Maya avoided eye contact, afraid she might seem rude. Adrian stared at the table, unsure how to start any conversation. He wasn't used to talking to strangers. He wasn't used to talking to anyone outside work, actually. The waiter approached them. "Will you be joining them?" he asked Maya with a polite smile. Maya quickly shook her head. No, please keep the bills separate. We don't know each other." She didn't want the man to think she wanted anything from him. Adrian glanced at her. There was honesty in her voice. Respect. He appreciated that more than he expected. Her son hummed softly while looking at the menu, trying to choose something simple and affordable. Maya whispered to him, gently guiding him toward cheaper items, thinking Adrian might listen and judge them. She wanted to avoid any misunderstanding. Adrian noticed, and something stirred in his chest. He had come from a world where money solved most problems. But here in front of him sat a woman carefully counting how much happiness she could afford for her child. This small detail, this gentle struggle, hit him harder than expected. He finally spoke. "You can order what you want. Don't worry about anything." Maya looked up quickly. "Oh, no, it's okay," she said. "We manage. Thank you." Her polite refusal wasn't pride, it was dignity. Adrian respected that even more. Still, the boy smiled at him, holding the menu. Kids didn't understand pride. Kids only understood kindness. "What's your name?" Adrian asked softly. The boy replied in a shy voice, "Evan." Adrian smiled. "Nice to meet you, Evan." It was the first genuine smile he had made that night. Maya observed this quietly. She couldn't help noticing how different the man looked now, less serious, less cold. Something about Evan's innocence opened a small door in Adrian's heart. The food arrived. Evan happily started eating. Maya took small bites, still careful not to seem too comfortable. Adrian watched them, feeling something new, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He broke the silence again. "You two seem close." Maya blinked, then smiled a little. "It's just us. So yes, we are close." There was a soft strength in her words. A strength built from daily struggles, long nights, and countless sacrifices. Adrian looked at her with respect. "You're doing well," he said quietly. She looked surprised. No one usually said that to her. Most people judged. Few appreciated. Their conversation started slow, simple. Maya asked him no personal questions. She didn't know he was a CEO. She didn't know the empty seat belonged to a date who never came. She talked to him like he was just another human being sitting in a crowded restaurant, and that was something Adrian hadn't experienced in years. He found himself talking too, about random things, light things. Nothing personal, nothing deep. But even that was new for him. He wasn't used to opening up at all. Then, just as the moment became soft and warm, something changed. The restaurant door opened again. A man in a grey suit stepped inside, scanning the room. He spotted Adrian and froze for a second.